Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the one and the only Rum Boys Fantasy Network. As always, it's your boy, Rum Boys Robbie, your host, aka the Admiral. And we thank you all for joining us tonight here on the pirate ship, here on the Rum Boys Fantasy Network. Before we get into tonight's show, I would greatly appreciate if all of our brothers and sisters out there in the fantasy football community could go ahead and hit that subscribe button. All right, that little red button that says subscribe. Yeah, make that red button go gray really quick. Also, feel free to hit the subscribe button. Toss us one of these. Hit that like button. Make that gray button go blue. I apologize. And also dive off into the live chat and enjoy tonight's live stream. We have a special episode for you guys. This is Business and Brews. We have a very special guest with you guys tonight. For you guys tonight. But first, let me go ahead and introduce my co-host for tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, my chief editor over at the Rum Boys Fantasy Network on rumboys.com, Miles. The fantasy football peacock.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Robbie. It has been a while, but I'm glad to be on here doing a live with you, and with such a great special guest that we do have tonight. So very pumped, very excited for this, and once again, appreciate you for asking me to come on here and talk some good old football with you.
Yeah, so fantasy football isms, as we like to put it here at the Rum Boys Fantasy Network. I appreciate you for joining me here on a Thursday night, brother, and I'm excited to also see you tomorrow night when we get wild on Rum Boys After Dark. So thank you for pulling a double, right. Ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and get into introducing our special guest. Representing the NFL Network, virtually joining us from the beautiful city of Angels, Los Angeles, California. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcas Grant.
What's going on, fellas? I felt like I can't come on the Rum Boys podcast and not have a little something in my glass. So it's not rum, but a little mezcal for tonight. So I figured I'd have a little something to sip on. A little something to sip on when I join the pod.
Hell yeah. Well, cheers to me. Cheers to you, all the Rum Boys and girls. What it do? Dilly dilly. We appreciate you, brother.
Dilly dilly, indeed.
So really quick before we get into the show, let's go ahead. We're just gonna do some light, keeping the bills on. Got to keep these lights on here in the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you all to head on over, whether you have an iPhone, go into your app store, or an Android, go into your Play Store and download the Monkey Knife Fight app. Again, that is MKF, Monkey Knife Fight. When you sign up, utilize promo code RUMBOYS in all caps. We have you taken care of on all daily fantasy sports action. So get on over to monkeyknifefight.com, promo code RUMBOYS, and enjoy some daily fantasy sports. We have the NBA going on right now, college basketball. And, well, we all know that you're itching for football to come back. And don't worry, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. Don't worry. Miles, go ahead and holler at the people about SportsMe.
Yeah, so if you haven't heard about SportsMe, go ahead and head on over to wherever you do download your apps and check out the SportsMe app. Since I've been using this, it hasn't been long. It's been maybe 2 or 3 weeks here since I've jumped on. It is addicting as hell. You want to engage with some of your favorite fantasy analysts who are on the app, such as myself and Robbie, Bogart Scott Free, Justin Clock Management, some of the other guys that you might know from our show. We're doing that. We're posting battles on there from all sports topics, anything that's going on, current events, sports-wise, fantasy-wise. And then you get to give us points for takes, and we win points for battles, and vice versa. You join, we'll join in on your battle. We'll get in there with you. We'll chop it up. So go ahead and head on over to wherever you can download that. Check out SportsMe app. It's a beautiful thing. We call it it's like TikTok for adults because we're talking about sports and we're getting serious about it, baby.
You don't got to do all the dancing. Hey, no, don't worry. You're good. You're good.
Down to business.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I like that you mentioned clock management. Him and Jay the Plug, they just had a really dope battle where they were in costume, like character versus character, and it was crazy. Marcus, I'm going to have to send you the link so you can kind of get on Jay. I know we're all going to be in the fantasy league this upcoming season. You're going to probably need that clip later, but bro, look at you right here, man,
Check out Jay, man, because he does some beautiful work on, he does custom paint jobs on Air Force Ones, and he sends those out to buddies who inquire. So I would check in with him as well. And I love his his fantasy characters that he has on those battles. They're hilarious.
Yeah. Marcus, you love the TikTok, bro?
You know what? I was on the Joe Morley show earlier today, and we were sort of joking about that. I was basically like, I get it. I haven't quite embraced it yet. So I'm still trying to figure it out. Like I think when I first heard about it, somebody told me it's Vine with greater production value, and I was like, well, I barely used Vine, so like, I don't really know if I'm built for this.
Hey, we got something easier for you. Maybe you guys might be able to debate Marcus. Let's go ahead and get into the show. See, like how I did that for you, brother. I was like, hey, maybe something. Let's go ahead and get into the show. Marcus, first off, it's a pleasure meeting you, my brother. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. And sometimes, sooner late than better, but never late is better is what I always like to say. Shout out to the homie Drake for that lyric right there. Bars. But a huge fan for a very long time. Thank you for coming on tonight. Just really quick, I wanted to get your origin story. How did you get from where you were to now NFL Network? And then also, if it wasn't going to be working with the NFL in some capacity, fantasy football, what was going to be the alternate career path for Marcus?
Wow. Well, my origin story is I didn't plan to be here. I never in a million years would have imagined doing fantasy football as a career. I had spent, before I got to the NFL Network, I had spent about a decade working in sports radio in various forms. I spent a couple of years doing play-by-play for minor league baseball. Did a lot of local radio, up and down the state of California. Spent a lot of time in the Central Valley. Was fortunate enough to end up getting a job with a national radio network, which at the time was Sporting News Radio. They have changed names multiple times. I have no idea what they are now.
Yeah.
But after a couple of years of that, that job sort of went away. They moved operations to Houston. I kind of wanted to stay in California. I'm born and raised in California, kind of wanted to stay out here. So was kind of just freelancing, freelance writing, doing whatever I can to kind of make ends meet. I had a friend / coworker who suggested that I apply for jobs at the NFL. He was sort of working part-time doing some stuff with NFL media. So I remember I went on the website and found their careers section and just applied for like 5 or 6 jobs. Some of them I wasn't even qualified for, but like, file it under shoot your shot.
Shoot or shoot. Yeah, shoot or shoot.
File it under shoot your shot. I applied for like 5 or 6 jobs. Mind you, this was 2011, and at the time the lockout was going on, and people weren't sure if there was actually going to be a season. So I applied for stuff, didn't hear anything for a few months. I think the one response I got was a rejection for a job. I knew I wasn't qualified for it. I got the response back like, "Hey, thanks, but no thanks." The guy who sent me the rejection note, he and I actually to this day are still friends. And every once in a while, I remind him of the fact that he sent me a rejection letter for a job I applied for. But having kind of forgotten about things, I got a call from Michael Fabiano, who was the lead fantasy analyst at the time. He asked me if I wanted to interview for a job writing fantasy. I was like, "Does it pay?" He said, "Yeah." I'm like, "Sure." So the night before the interview, and let this be a lesson, kids, about preparation for interviews. The night before the interview, I read a week's worth of his columns. And I pretty much just, regurgitated his own information back to him. And so got that interview. Felt like I did okay. A few weeks later, the day the lockout ended, I remember waking up in the morning, turning on ESPN, seeing the news reports that the NFL lockout was over. There's going to be a season. A couple hours after that, Fabs called me, offered me the job. And I just finished my 10th season there. So that's kind of the quick history of how I got there. If it wasn't this, I really don't know. I at one point, I'll say this, my career aspirations, depending on how old I was, have changed drastically. When I was a little kid, it ranged from magician to stand-up comedian to first black president, but somebody beat me to that one.
Yeah, I think we both got beat to that one.
somebody beat me to that one. So that didn't happen. After a while, I got to high school. I wanted to be a writer. I thought I wanted to be like a serious news anchor, right? Like I thought that was going to be my path. It was like doing serious hard news. Once I got to college, I realized that the sports thing was more fun. It was closer to kind of what my interests were. So I kind of started down the sports path.
But you did do radio, correct?
I did radio.
At some point?
Yeah, I did radio. I did radio in college, and then after I spent a year or so just kind of working in other jobs. Ended up doing radio. I thought for a while my career goal was to be the play-by-play radio voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers. Except me, like any number of other kids coming up in Southern California. I grew up in the Bay Area, but any other number of kids who came up in California, Vin Scully kind of held on to that job for a long time.
Right.
So he kind of forced a lot of us to make our career choices.
Find other paths.
Gotta move on.
Yeah, right. So I mean, honestly, if this job hadn't come along, I honestly really don't know what would have happened. Like I said, I didn't plan to be here, but I landed here, and for 10 seasons, it's been pretty good.
But that's beautiful because the universe was just it happened super organically. You didn't fight against it. You were just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go with the flow. As long as whatever's being given to me, through the universe, I'm gonna just go ahead and I'm accept it. So like I think that's the lesson that I kind of took from that. Really quick question before we allow Miles to get into our second question. The interview, the interview process, was it? Do you feel like it was like most like corporate interviews, or like do you feel like it was more so fantasy knowledge based, what you knew, or like kind of if you could kind of what insights you're allowed to give to someone that could possibly, I don't know, maybe apply?
Yeah, no, it was. Well, I think it's different for other people, right? Like I feel like, Fabs, look, he gave me my start, so I'm always going to be grateful to him for that. I think what he was sort of looking for is different than what I was looking for when I was interviewing people for the job. I will tell you, this. I don't know if you remember Montario Hardesty, who was a backup running back for the Cleveland Browns for a number of years. I have never met the man. If I do, I owe him a beer because he is the reason I got this job. Fabs basically was asking questions, just kind of testing your fantasy knowledge, right? Like how you would give advice to people. And the one question that he told me later kind of landed me the job was, this was after the year Peyton Hillis had his just huge, the one big year Peyton Hillis had, that helps him land on the cover of Madden, if you remember. The question was, if Peyton Hillis went down with an injury, what advice would you give? I will tell you that, until the night before when I was reading all these other articles, I couldn't have come up with Montario Hardesty's name, but because I happened to read those articles, I did. I said, the answer was I would tell people, go and pick up Montario Hardesty. He said that every other person who answered that question basically said, I would say go pick up Hillis's backup, and didn't give the name. I was the only person in the interview process who gave the name specifically, and that's what got me the job. So Montario Hardesty, if by some random chance you were listening to this podcast, I salute you. If we ever meet in person, drinks are on me.
Cheers, right?
Yeah.
That's a funny story.
So yeah, I mean, it was. I would say it was an interview like kind of any other job, though. It was sort of like, what do you do well? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Why should we hire you? With some, football themed questions kind of thrown in. But I didn't find it really to be any different than, any number of other job interviews I've been on in my life.
That's the way I did it. I always crammed right before the test, and it was all there. Like pass with flying colors.
Exactly, because most interviews are usually, for those of you guys out there that especially for the younger crowd that could be listening, when you graduate from college, you're going to go through interviews. Little quick note: STAR, situation, task, situation, task, action, resolution. Like you said, they gave you the situation. The task was how you would give advice. your action that you said was, hey, like I would say, go get the backup, and that was the resolution to landing you getting the job.
I gotta write that down. I've never heard that before. I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna make a note of that right now.
Taking notes as well. That was the first time for me. Robbie really surprised me with that one.
Hey, shout out to NBC Universal Marketing. Big up. Thank you. I knew you paid off the stuff, dude. Miles, go ahead and hit that next question, brother.
Yeah, sure. So, Marcus, it's been great getting to know you here in this this little short time that we've been on here so far. And just so like all of our viewers can know as well, just kind of, we kind of, Robbie himself, myself being Hispanic, kind of going into this ever-growing fantasy industry space where minorities are starting to kind of have a voice. And we look up to people like yourself in our eyes, you've made it. You're here at this kind of, pinnacle area where we're aspiring to be at. Just wondering, were there any crazy obstacles you faced on the way up there, or and you could be as candid with this as you'd like to be, but I mean, was there anything that kind of shaped or that you kind of encountered on the way through your journey to where you are now?
It's funny because I tend to sort of, for a while at least, I would say on the path here, never really thought about it. I don't know. I don't even know how really to explain it, right? In the sense that, look, I understood, understanding that like there aren't a whole lot of folks who look like me doing minor league baseball play-by-play, right? I would say that, I was in the California League, like single A baseball, and there were 10 teams in the California League. I was the only minority doing radio for sure. I sort of realized at some point that when you talk about sports media, especially on television, most of the black and brown faces you see generally are people who played the sport at some level, whether it's they played played at a big time college, they played professionally. I was a mediocre second baseman in high school. Like that was it.
I'm around there too, same kind of background.
I was
intramural collegiate flag football, baby.
Like I had a decent glove. I couldn't hit water if I fell out of a boat, So like, that was kind of the extent of my athletic career. So I certainly understood that. I will say that I had been at the NFL for a few years, and it wasn't really until a couple years in that I sort of realized it. I remember talking with one of the guys who was on the research team, and just kind of in passing, he was like, "Hey man, just keep doing what you do." And I was like, "Hey, thanks, man." And he just kind of threw in. He's like, "Look, man, there just aren't a lot of folks who look like us doing this, man. So like, I appreciate what you're doing, and just keep doing your job." And that moment, it just kind of sunk in, right? Like, it was one of those things that you sort of think about, but you don't really put a lot of thought into it. And so it was like, I know that, kind of coming through this, every now and then just talking to my parents about my career path and what I was doing. I do remember kind of having after the baseball stuff ended and just trying to find another job, and my dad asking me if I felt like it was harder to get jobs because there weren't people who looked like me. There weren't a whole lot of black folks doing what I do. And I remember saying to him at the time, I'm like, you might be right. It really might be possible, but it's hard enough to kind of get jobs in this industry, and it's hard enough to move up in, regardless of what you look like.
Yeah,
right. It's hard enough already, and I'm like, if I sort of dwell on the fact that my skin color is making it harder, I'm like,
harder. I'm making it harder on myself. I'm now making it harder on myself because I'm now self-inflicting that pain onto myself.
Right, and I told him, I just straight up told him, I was like, you might be right, you might be onto something, but if I sat and sort of dwelled on that, like, I would just sit and be depressed all the time. Like every time I would say every time I got a rejection letter. The thing about this industry is like a lot of times you don't even get rejection letters. Like you send stuff out, and it just goes out into the void, right? So like
send it to the abyss.
I mean, funny story. When I was early in this thing, and like when I was first coming out of college, and I would send out like tapes and letters because this was before the internet was a big deal. Like you had to send out physical cassette tapes to people.
Yeah.
I would send out cassette tapes to like minor league teams trying to get a play-by-play job at the beginning. I used to collect the rejection letters mostly because they came on cool stationery and cool letterhead. So like I would hold on to a lot of them just because I'm like, hey man, like, you know, whatever AAA, whatever AA affiliate this is, like they're using the Detroit Tigers logo. That's kind of cool. I'm gonna hold on to this.
See, and me, I'm kind of similar in that manner because it's like, you know what, you wanna give me a rejection or whatever. That's not the last time that you're gonna hear from me. I'm gonna be back, bigger, better, stronger than ever. More research.
I was using them as fuel for the fire.
It's mama mentality. Honestly, so I like that you said that, and that's how you approach that question.
And I appreciate your response. I'm sorry, I know it's kind of a tough question. It's kind of
it was a tough
question. I mean, I appreciate you asking it, and I will say that in the last year, it is a question that I've been asked a lot more, because I will say that in the last year, I feel like I've seen more minorities kind of getting into this, and it was starting beforehand. But I do feel like there's been an explosion of it in the last 12 months. I don't know if it, I don't know if it's, the kind of the social justice summer we went through. I don't know if it's COVID. I don't know if it's COVID, right? If it's COVID and we're all stuck inside, everybody's stuck inside, and so we're all trying new things. I can't pinpoint exactly.
Got to get the analytics on that.
What it is. But I've seen more folks. I've seen more folks who look like me doing it, and I'm glad. I'm certainly happy to see it. So like, I appreciate you asking the question. I will say that it really is something that has been talked about a whole lot more, I think, in the last 12 months or so.
Yeah,
that's good.
I was honestly excited when you were like, yeah, like I'll come on. I was like, I'll be honest, this is what behind the scenes. I was like, guys, we gotta black analysts to join the show.
So
he's being completely honest there because
I believe
that's how he reacts.
So here's the thing. I will couple things about that. One,
they were like, are you for real?
Long before I started at the NFL, I was doing a podcast with a couple of friends of mine. We did it, I think, for like 2.5, 3 years. Never saw one dime out of it. We were kind of hoping. This was before podcasts were like really generating money. We were sort of hoping just to kind of do a podcast, bake some tapes, and maybe like end up getting a radio show out of it. But we never saw a dime. And so like I remember that grind. So that's part of the reason like I'm totally down. Like when I see folks doing pods and they invite me on, like I'm totally down to like help out and be a guest.
Awesome.
I did pods. I did pods. I was a radio producer who was always super grateful whenever I could get it. Like I will tell you what, it is a nightmare trying to produce a radio show late nights on weekends and trying to get guests. So anytime somebody would come on the show, I was always super grateful. The other thing is, I will tell you that even now, occasionally, like I get starstruck about stuff. One of my favorite moments since I've worked here, I remember walking in the dressing room to just grab a shirt or a tie or something like that, and Terrell Davis was sitting in there.
Yes.
Just chilling, watching TV, whatever. I don't think to that point I'd ever had a conversation with TD ever. But I walked in the room to grab whatever I needed, and he looked up and he's like, "Hey, Marcus, what's going on?" Like on the outside, I was just like, "Hey, TD, what's up?" On the inside, I'm like, "Oh my God, Terrell Davis knows my name! Oh my God, he knows my name! He knows my name!" But I had to I had to keep it together, right? Like I couldn't just like fanboy out.
You could, but it wouldn't have been cool at all.
I feel that we had gotten the opportunity, our very first year doing our podcast, we got the opportunity to interview the 2019 rookie class. Long did I know this is the last time that I was going to be able to raw dog air with but so we go out there for the NFLPA rookie premiere. It's the night of the jersey reveal, and literally, when I say literally bumped into Terrell Davis, like I'm 5'10", I'm a skinny dude, you know. I'm a skinny light skinned brother. Like I'm small, I'm 155. So like when I bumped into him, I had my rum and coke in my hand. I'm like, oh,
Ricochet.
yeah. And he's like, aren't you guys? I have my blazer on. I have my rum boy shirt on. And he was like, you guys are the guys that won the contest to interview the rookies, and we were like, yeah. He's like, oh yeah, let's take a picture. And I was like,
grab a camera.
TD is one of the best dudes. I mean, just nicest guys. Will just talk to you about anything. TD is great.
Met him, Andre Reed that night. It was crazy. That was like the moment I was like, yep, I've made it. And then I got back home off that plane. I was like, I ain't made shit. Let's get back to work. Let's go ahead and let's get into some fantasy football talk. So we've talked about the industry, you know, the landscape and like where it's going, which is awesome. I appreciate you for being inspiration to you know, young brothers like the both of us, and many others out there. And I appreciate you honestly being brave enough to even fucking answer that question, because most people would be like, "What did you just ask me?" But we're the Rum Boys, so like I feel like we can. Fantasy football temperature check. I want to get into this. I'm gonna list 3 players, and I'm just gonna allow you to give us your temperature check on these 3 guys. And these 3 guys, I noticed that a lot of people in the fantasy football industry have either been scorned by them, and it's like they either won't draft them or either they might draft them. And I want to know where you're at. The first one is Odell Beckham Jr. I need to catch with 2 hands, Odell Beckham Jr. Julio, please stay healthy, Jones. And Amari, I like to disappear in games, Cooper. And what is your take on all 3 of these gentlemen?
Well, I'll go in reverse order from where you listed him. I'll start with Amari Cooper. I'm in on Amari. So last year, coming into the season, I was on the Michael Gallup train. I kept referring to Michael Gallup as the Jan Brady of fantasy football, right? Because everybody talked about Amari Cooper and everybody was on CeeDee Lamb, and I got it, right? But I felt like Michael Gallup. Right, exactly. I felt like Michael Gallup was going to be sort of that great intersection of production and draft value, right? Because the year before that, Gallup and Cooper were pretty similar in overall production. I think Gallup was just a few points behind, but what I loved about Michael Gallup was that he was more consistent week to week. The thing that always scared me about Amari Cooper is that, like, you love the 35-point weeks that he gives you, but then when he follows it up with a 6-point week, like, you're so angry. It is. And so that kind of kept me off Amari Cooper. Last year, though, he was pretty steady. He was consistent week to week. That was my only gripe with Cooper. But last year, he didn't have quite as wide a variance. Now, you know, Dak just got paid. Dak is happy. Hopefully Dak is healthy. The Cowboy defense is still going to be bad unless something major happens this offseason, which means they're going to throw the football. So I'm totally on board with Amari Cooper.
Do you worry about Gallup?
I would still, here's the thing. Gallup of the 3 is going to be the least productive, but I still think there's a chance for him to be good. Like if you're looking for a depth add at wide receiver in the kind of later rounds, I still think there's some value there for Gallup because as long as Dak is there and throwing the football, everybody's going to eat to some degree in that offense. But I'm definitely a lot more on board with Amari Cooper this year than I was this time last year. Okay. Julio Jones, I still believe in Julio. What's wild to me is that everybody's like, I don't want to draft Julio because he doesn't score touchdowns. And I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm just like, so what? You're telling me you can't use 100 catches and 1,400 yards on your team? Like, you don't want that? All right. It's like, I remember years ago, somebody was like, hey, you gonna play the lottery? And I'm like, I don't know. It's only like $6 million. And like somebody in my office was like, what, you can't use $6 million? I was like, that's a good point. I was like, that's a really good point.
I always tell my wife, and she's like, hey, the lotto's up to whatever. It's like, look, we can't win if we don't play.
Right.
We never stop to get tickets.
So like I will say this. I don't think Julio is still among the elite fantasy wide receivers. but I still think he's very good. I think Calvin Ridley is the number one in Atlanta now.
Yeah.
But I still think Julio Jones is very good. I still think he's going to give you outstanding production. So I would still draft Julio Jones. It's just, you're just not drafting him and making him your, standalone bona fide set it and forget it number one.
Yeah.
Just okay. Unless your name is Frank Gore, Father Time comes for us all, right? Like it just happens that way. So
I just strained my calf like 2 weeks ago playing flag football, man. I feel it real bad. I barely walk for a whole week, but I'm over it now. But man,
I rolled my ankle on one of my kids' Legos and was like, I'm kind of done for the day. Like whatever, like it happens. You know what I'm saying? I'm still down.
I've been there too.
Right.
Legos, man. Damn those Legos.
Odell I honestly don't have a clue what to do about Odell.
I don't want him on my team.
I don't know, man. I think I might have dip. I might have dip.
Like I think I'm gonna let him be someone else's worry next year, and like I'll sit here right now on March 11th, 2021, and tell you like, hey, maybe I missed out on something great. Could be. Maybe he's like the Odell Beckham from a few years ago. Maybe he's like his peak with the New York Giants. Maybe I end up missing out on it. So be it. I'll just chalk that one up to a missed opportunity.
That's fine.
I literally have zero idea of what to expect and how to project Odell Beckham this season. Okay. I just don't know.
So duly noted. Make sure Odell falls to Marcas in fantasy draft.
Just force me to make a decision, right?
Super question marks.
Sweating. About Odell.
If he's like my first bench player at like the running back, wide receiver position, it depends on the format, right? Where you're drafted in. But it's Odell. Maybe it's the name still. I haven't drafted him in years, so I'm just saying maybe this is the year. But I don't know. I probably still wouldn't pull the trigger either.
I'm not doing it. Okay. Miles.
You gotta get your guys.
Get your guys, man.
Get your guys. Miles.
He's not my guy.
He's nobody
he's not my
guy. Go ahead and set us off with that next question, bro.
So next question. I totally forgot what it was. Oh yeah. So wanted to give you. Sorry.
I thought it was pros.
It's been a while since I've done one of these, but wanted to just ask you, give us an upcoming rookie prospect at any offensive position, and I'm not talking one of those top name guys at the 1 and 2 at each spot, a Lawrence Etienne. It's kind of whatever, but somebody of that caliber, I guess, or just outside that you think will have an immediate fantasy football impact going into next season for us.
Can I say Javonte Williams?
Sure, I think that qualifies fine as well. Yeah, I mean, people are starting to come around on him, but let's go. Let's hear it.
Look, it's funny. I was for somebody else. I was doing some some prospect profiles, and I was actually watching Daz Newsome, the wide receiver at North Carolina, and in the process of I knew Javonte Williams. I kind of had an idea of who he was, but it's funny that in the process of watching Daz Newsome, you couldn't help but notice Javonte Williams, right? It's like, here I am, I'm watching this wide receiver, and the whole time I'm just seeing this running back just pop play after play after play. And I'm like, damn, man.
The film doesn't lie.
Is ready. And then on top of it, I think what sort of sealed it for me, Daniel Jeremiah, who does just such an amazing job in terms of his prospect evaluation and that sort of thing. I saw him tweet a few days ago that he was moving Williams ahead of Najee Harris. And I'm like, if DJ says that, I'm in. If DJ says that, I'm on board. So I think, and I think what we've seen with running backs, especially, a lot more rookie running backs are ready to come in and produce right away. Yeah. I think, and not that the receivers aren't. We've seen a lot of really good rookie receivers. Like I thought about Devontae Smith as another option there. We've seen receivers come in and certainly pop in year one, but it just seems like lately the running backs, no pun intended, hit the ground running when they get to the NFL. And so I feel like whoever is drafting Javonte Williams, they are going to give him an opportunity to be a playmaker in year one. And I do think that he's going to be a guy that you're going to see. I don't know how high he's going to go in drafts. I don't think this is going to be an Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley type situation where we're talking about taking him in the first or second round. Right. But I do think that he's going to be a guy that you're going to see come off the board round 4 or 5 and really be an impact player. Maybe not from week 1, but certainly early in the season.
You got my gears turning. Like my dynasty league mates are literally going to go, "This is not fair. You interviewed Marcas."
They can watch this pod just as easy as anybody else, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and rewatch this.
Exactly.
Our drafts for sure.
I'm taking mental notes. Okay. I like Williams as well. But I think last week Friday night. I love that sound. I think last week Friday night. I had mentioned Javonte Williams in our last segment. So hell yeah.
Was that on last week? Thanks for rubbing it in. I was on. I was telling you I had audio problems, so I don't even recall.
Yeah. You weren't on like half the show. Like you were in and out. Let's see here. So they getting in NFL free agency. And this is probably where we can let our personal NFL real life biases kind of be, while also at the same time giving a fantasy take. Because I'm sure that we all want these guys for our own personal NFL teams. The Kansas City Chiefs completely obliterated their O-line between like yesterday and today. Should we worry for Patrick Mahomes? Last time we saw him, he was running for dear life in the Super Bowl. He did have kind of like that ankle injury. Does his ADP just drop maybe a little, maybe a spot or two, or does it not matter?
I wouldn't push the panic button yet. It's not great. I'm not going to pretend it's suboptimal not having tackles. But let's wait and see what happens, right? I mean, there's certainly always a chance that the Chiefs bring one or both of those guys back, maybe at a lower price. We'll see. We'll see what happens if there's somebody in free agency they go get, if there's somebody in the draft they go get. I still have a hard time thinking that Patrick Mahomes won't be the first quarterback off the board in fantasy drafts.
Yeah.
One thing I have noticed, though, in some of the mock drafts I've done, like in the past couple of years, I've seen Mahomes drafted in the 2nd round, 3rd round. Right now, I'm starting to see him go off a little bit more in the 4th round, which I could get off on a rant about quarterback drafting. I don't know if you want to hear that here. I have.
You're fine.
If it's about you holding off on drafting quarterbacks, then I'm cool.
So here's the thing. I think you do it just because. I don't think it's as critical as it used to be, right? Because now you're seeing a lot more quarterbacks go in the 6th round, 5th round, 6th round, because we want quarterbacks who can run, and there aren't as many of them. So you do have to reach a little bit earlier. Like it's a lot harder to wait until the 9th or 10th round and get your quarterback. That's the first thing. What I really want from fantasy football is that we have to rethink quarterback scoring. Because
those rushing quarterbacks, man.
Rushing quarterbacks too, but also I go back to a couple years ago, and this is what sent me down the path, right? Was watching Jameis Winston throw 30 interceptions in a season and somehow still being a top 5 fantasy quarterback.
Yeah. Ryan Fitzpatrick, those types.
It just didn't make sense. We have to figure out a way to make the elite quarterbacks worthwhile. What I don't understand is if we all agree that Patrick Mahomes is awesome, we all agree. Like you're not going to find anybody out there who will disagree with the fact that Patrick Mahomes is awesome and is probably the best quarterback skill-wise in the NFL right now. So why then is it considered a strategic disadvantage to draft him? It doesn't make sense. We got to figure out how to eliminate that, right? We got to figure out how to take that out of the game.
My brother-in-law loves to draft him first, all the time if he gets an early pick. But he has this because he commissions a couple of his own leagues, and he has this stuff in place where they have bonuses for 300-yard games or touchdown passes over 30 yards and bonuses on bonuses on bonuses. So he'll try to stack and do things of that nature, but it doesn't work in other leagues mine where I always laugh at him. So
and maybe that's the way you do it, is you put bonuses in there. I mean, my suggestion had been you have escalators in there, right? So like, any touchdown pass over the second one, right? When you throw a third touchdown pass, maybe that one counts for 7. The fourth touchdown pass counts for 8.
Multipliers.
Similarly, you get multipliers for interceptions, right? If in real life, if you throw 3 interceptions in a game, you had a bad game.
And you probably lost.
You hurt your team, right? But like in fantasy, you throw 3 interceptions, like
it's like I want those because you're not gonna throw and like come back from them. Maybe
you're gonna have to throw.
I was like, give me Jameis Winston all day.
Right, exactly. We got to figure out a way to make those interceptions hurt a little bit more. And so, like, I have been sort of banging this drum for the last few years.
But fantasy relate to reality, please.
Right. But anyway, to get back to your actual question about it, I still think Mahomes is going to be the first quarterback off the board. I still generally think he's going to be okay. I mean, between the weapons they have there, between the brain trust of Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, they are going to be okay throughout the fantasy season. And if we're talking about Patrick Mahomes in the 4th round, I think that's going to make for a lot of really interesting choices that people have to make. It's one thing when somebody just snatches him up in the 2nd or 3rd round, and the rest of us are like, well, I wasn't going to make that move. So it sort of takes it out of your hand. It sort of takes it out of your hand. But if you're sitting there in the 4th round and you're like, oh, I could take this receiver or I could take Patrick Mahomes. Like now you got a real choice to make. So I'm curious to see whether or not that's going to be a thing all throughout the summer.
I'm gonna try to avoid that because I normally just don't draft Mahomes. Somebody else will. You know what I mean? So I'm just gonna have to overlook it.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Most people are like, well, I'm just never gonna have Mahomes, and so you don't even think about it. You're just like, whatever. But now if suddenly if that's in play, you got a decision to make.
I like that you bring this up because I had Mahomes in Dynasty. Like when today happened, I was like, I could probably move him for a pretty freaking penny right now. I could pull some Deshaun Watson trying to lead the Texas type stuff right now. Like, let me get all your future first. Let me get but
somebody would be trying to get him off of him for sure.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion if you can try to get Deshaun Watson, like this is the time to do it because there may be some nervous hands in dynasty leagues holding on to Deshaun Watson, and so like maybe you just kind of slime an offer and see.
Talking my language.
Yeah, because if I'm a Deshaun Watson owner, I'd be scared that he actually sits out they don't trade him and he sits out games, and I'm like, in a super flex or something. You're like, damn, I'm losing games to start the season.
I'm like, you know what? I'm like, make an offer, see if you can get him right, and if the worst case scenario comes and he doesn't play, then obviously you got some problems and you got some holes you got to fill. But
it's one position
wherever he goes, whether he stays in Houston or he gets traded somewhere else. Like I don't worry about Deshaun. He's going to be fine. He's going to be fine. He's going to make everybody around him better. But if somebody around you has a shaky hand and doesn't want to have to deal with that headache, be the gentleman and offer to take them off their hands.
Hey, what they say, you got to know when to hold them.
Right.
Know when to fold them. Yeah, we're not going to get into that. Yeah.
Kenny Rogers ain't never lied.
Never lied.
Didn't know him too.
But no, I'm going to wrap up that question and pass it to Miles for the second question with just this one simple sentiment. And because I had to toss some reality into this. Hey, Washington. Big Bank Bezos. I know you're about to take over the team, baby. Go ahead and make the call, baby. Big Bank Bezos. Build up that old line. It's time to let the Heineken rip, baby. Go ahead, Miles. Next question.
So you were saying you want those chief offensive linemen. Is that what you're talking about to go pay them?
Yeah.
I mean, they're 30 and 32 or 31 anyways.
But let's bring back the Hogs, baby.
Kind of expensive, but I mean, they went to a Super Bowl. Didn't win it, but okay. So next question. Which second-year wide receiver do you want on your fantasy team and why? And I think we touched on CeeDee Lamb just a tad bit earlier, but we are going to juxtapose this fine young specimen of a receiver versus Justin Jefferson. That man is a bad man this last year anyway, but who would you rather have and why? And you can see my bias.
So let me start by saying that last year I really would preach to anybody who would listen that Justin Jefferson was going to be the best rookie receiver in fantasy because I felt like he was walking into a ready-made situation. With Stephon Diggs gone, targets were there. And say what you want about Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a great quarterback for fantasy, maybe not to have on your team. Like you don't want him necessarily as your fantasy quarterback,
but you want the pieces around him
because Kirk Cousins has tunnel vision, right? Generally, he picks two guys to throw the football to. Before it was Thielen and Diggs, and last year it was Thielen and Jefferson. And
so I felt like tiny Madden cone.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it really is. It's just like it is. It's like it's those two guys pretty much. Every now and then he'll sprinkle one to Dalvin Cook, or he'll throw one to the tight end or whatever. Hashtag let Earth swerve in 2020.
Oh yeah,
the moon. But I said last year Justin Jefferson would be the top wide receiver. He was way better than I ever anticipated. That being said, I think CeeDee Lamb has the higher overall ceiling. So if we're talking about, especially if we're talking about dynasty, Lamb is the guy that I want, in part because, if it comes down to it and I have to pick, if you're asking me to pick the quarterbacks, I'll take Dak all day over Kirk Cousins. And like I said earlier, that Cowboy defense, unless something major happens, is still going to be bad. The Cowboys are going to be in a lot of track meets, which means Dak is going to be throwing the football. And I really do see a situation where in a couple of years, Amari Cooper's not there anymore, and CeeDee Lamb becomes the number one wide receiver. I think it's a win-win whichever way you go between Jefferson and Lamb.
Right.
But I think over the long haul, CeeDee Lamb's the guy I want.
With I feel like with either one, you're asking for, and I'm a bit of a hip. Wow, I was about to refer to hip hop or something. Wow. I'm a bit of. Yeah, I'm a bit of a football historian in that I do believe that even on the field, history can come and repeat itself. And we saw that this year, statistically speaking, with Justin Jefferson, but then not only the way that Vikings offense operated. If you look back at those early Viking teams that had Randy Moss, where Justin Jefferson actually replicated those numbers this season, what did he have? A veteran receiver on the other side, Chris Carter. Yeah, Dante Culpepper, who he was just built like a match truck and he just take hits. Kirk Cousins and that, but he has that tunnel vision like Dante, where it's like, I'm hitting one of you two. And then I can't remember who the tight end.
They're open because it's Dalvin Cook. I mean, the way he draws people in, honestly.
And then they had like a decent running game, and and that's how that team was built. So, or not decent, but like a damn good running game. I can't remember who was in that backfield back then. And that's sad of me right now.
They had a plethora of guys that I can vaguely remember their names at the moment.
But I mean, and I think that's what you're banking on in terms of those two receivers in dynasty. You're banking on CeeDee Lamb to kind of give you that Michael Irvin-esque attitude on the field to produce those type of numbers as well.
Robert Smith is the running back.
It was Robert Smith. Why did I not get that?
It would have taken me a while. It would have taken me a while.
That's my name. Like I was like, I know this.
Sounds familiar, I think.
But so I think that's what you're banking on the two of those guys is history repeating itself in those very dominant offenses because they're both kind of trajecting up. As long as Dak remains healthy, even though they have to play in the same division as me, Dallas fans, hold on to your damn horses. Okay, I'm not saying that you're going to win the division, but they're definitely
the Cowboys win the Super Bowl every April. What are you talking about?
Every April. Every April 1st.
They throw the parade in late May, and
so that's my take on those two. Is really looking for history to repeat itself, especially with Justin Jefferson. And that's kind of why I'm taking Justin Jefferson everywhere because I'm like, oh, you did Randy Moss numbers, do it again, do it again.
It's a win-win. They're both great wide receivers on functioning offenses, and they're gonna excel. So yeah, I mean, who would you rather have though? I think that was an interesting take. I think Marcas hit it on the head, saying that he'd have CD long term, but I think in redraft that. Yeah.
Can we just put this out here about Justin Jefferson? Like everybody keeps throwing out the fact, and it is a true fact that he broke Randy Moss's rookie records. Let's not start conflating him with Randy. He's not Randy Moss.
He's not Randy Moss.
He's not Randy Moss.
You don't get Jefferson.
I'm not saying that.
right. Yeah, and I'm not saying that you are, but like I feel like people keep throwing this out there, and wanting to make it true that he is the next Randy Moss. And it's like, there will never be another Randy Moss.
Hey, he does want it to be true, though. He does want it to be true. So hey, look,
no. And good for him. Look, he should want it to be true, right? Like he should want to be that.
Yeah, that's setting the bar. It's like when Watson came into the league, he was like, I want to be like Tom Brady. Like he's like, I want to be
like you should want that. But like we can all watch and be like, yeah, I mean, you're very good. You're not Randy Moss.
Marcus
that's true. Yeah.
Marcus going to bump into Justin or Randy one day and be like, listen what these motherfuckers said about
I know, right? Am I about this? So I heard you talking about me, huh? Like,
just my luck. Damn it.
Marcus, final question before you go. And we gotta get into a little bit of free agency. I picked a couple of names out. Well, not just 2 names. Yeah, it's a couple still. What am I talking about?
A couple is 2, but that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks. Right? Yeah. I got a wide receiver and I have a running back, and I just want to know, where do you think either of these guys land? Kenny Golladay and Aaron Jones. What's their future hold?
So I'm just gonna be transparent, be like, I have no idea where they might land. I will tell you where I think I'll tell you where I want them to land for my own selfish fantasy purposes. For Golladay, I honestly think maybe the best place would be Indianapolis.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that yet.
They need wide receivers. Here's the thing. They've got guys there that are long on upside and short on production.
Ty's got to go already. I feel
Ty's not coming back. Like I don't think Ty is going to be back.
Good.
So it's it's Paris Campbell, it's Zach Pascal, it's Michael Pittman. I know that, as for me, being a USC guy and just a homer for any Trojans out there,
I adore Pittman. I think he's
great. I love Michael Pittman in college. I thought he flashed at times last year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Phillip Rivers obviously was at the end of his rope. But I thought Pittman played well. But I think they still need a true, bona fide, reliable wide receiver one. And I think Golladay can be that. And I think what will help him is with what worked with Golladay and Matthew Stafford is that Stafford is not afraid to throw into those tight windows. He's not afraid to throw the ball up and let his receiver go get them. I don't know if that comes from having started his career with Calvin Johnson and just having that guy who can go get the ball, or what, or that's just who Matthew Stafford is.
He's a gunslinger, though. He's from Texas.
He really is. He really is. Carson Wentz has sort of that same hero ball mentality. Like, I'm gonna throw it up and hope my guys make a play. Yeah. In Philly, he didn't really have. Look, I'm not gonna say it wasn't all on the wide receiver. Some of it was Carson Wentz just making head scratching plays. But
it all kind of looked like it was the receivers, though.
But I mean, the receivers didn't help. No, I mean the receivers didn't help the situation there.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But Golladay going there gives him a big target. Look, man, when you're relying on converted quarterback Greg Ward to be like your lead receiver,
I have him in a dynasty. Shh.
I mean,
somewhere.
I mean, look
on a bench.
Look, he took advantage of an opportunity. Good on him. I still wouldn't be trying to build my wide receiver room around him. That's all I'm saying. But Golladay can be that big, jump ball, 50-50 ball, contested catch guy that helps Carson Wentz out as a downfield threat. So I think that's where I'd like to see him go is Indianapolis. For Aaron Jones, the one obvious fit for me is Miami.
Yeah.
And the talk is that he and the Dolphins seem to kind of be flirting with one another. Like Miami sending the "you up" texts and stuff to him in the middle of the night, whatever.
He's leaving them on red.
Ryan Flores trying to slide into the DM, seeing what he's doing and everything like that. What I loved about the Miami offense last year, whether it was Myles Gaskin, Savon Ahmed, the Dolphins were pretty much a one running back team. Whoever the starter was in any given week, that guy was going to pretty much get all the touches. The one thing we have wanted from Aaron Jones, or for Aaron Jones, I should say, over the last few years,
free Aaron Jones.
We want him to get all of the touches, right? We want him, sure, Jamal Williams, nice player. fun guy, right?
He is interesting. I would love to interview him.
Seems like a fun dude, right? Like, I'd love to hang out with a guy. We still wanted Aaron Jones to get the ball more.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
In Miami, he would be that guy. And the Dolphins have already sort of hinted that Myles Gaskin, thank you for your service. We're probably going to go another direction.
Oh, my Myles brother. I had a fantasy team going where I was going to try to roster everybody named Myles. I was just
Myles Gaskin, Myles Boykin, Myles Garrett, Myles Jack. Like, where else you
all of them? Any way I could do it. Myles Sanders. I was going to load it up and see what I could
Myles
do.
Sanders.
I still need a QB somewhere, but we're working on it.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to find any any QBs named Myles
anytime soon.
So I think Miami is kind of the best. I will say this though. If Aaron Jones decides to come back to Green Bay, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Like, sure, he's not going to be that full-time workhorse back, but we also sort of know what he can do with the Packers, and it ain't all bad. So
yeah, and it won't. And for our sake, really wouldn't change his ADP like way too much. And then it would honestly calm down all the AJ Dillon troopers, which I would love.
Yeah, dude. And plus, as I have him rostered in a dynasty, but I also have AJ Dillon, the same one. But I would, it's proven system, and I'd feel more at ease because the wear and tear on his body, him as a player as well. I would feel like, hey, look, I'm not getting 30 touches or 20 something plus touches a game. Take a beating in that cold weather. Eventually, it takes its toll.
Saying Aaron Jones back to the Packers is basically just throwing rocks at the AJ Dillon hive. It's just throwing rocks at him. Like, they're ready. They've been ready since last summer. I don't know if you remember last summer during training camp when that picture showed up on Twitter of AJ Dillon wearing his training camp shorts, and like it looked like he stole his legs from an elephant. And like ever since then, the AJ Dillon hive has been buzzing. And so like you say Aaron Jones back to the Packers, like they get murder hornet angry. Like, it's just bad.
Oh my God!
They gave me an idea for the next graphic. There's going to be a guy in a beekeeper's outfit, like back a bunch of Aaron Jones flying around like faces.
Aaron Jones on like all the bees faces, multiple AJ Dillon multiple times, like on his.
There we go.
I love it.
That can be done.
Marcus, I greatly appreciate you for joining us tonight, brother. Thank you so much. We are grateful.
Yes, indeed.
Well, what do you have working on? What's going on in the world of MG?
I would say if you're looking for my stuff, the easiest place to find it is on Twitter at MarcasG, MarCasG. But if you really want all the breakdown of everything, we're still doing the podcast, the NFL Fantasy Football Show. You can find that where we're iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places where you download things for your ear holes. You can find the podcast. Also, we've got a YouTube page, youtube.com/NFL Fantasy Football. Like, subscribe. We're still doing plenty of VOD stuff, and especially obviously with free agency coming, you can expect to do plenty of that stuff. Also, I don't think you heard it here first, but maybe you have heard it here first. We're gonna be back on your TVs in a couple of weeks. We're doing the NFL Fantasy Live Free Agency Frenzy Special. That is on Monday, March 22nd. I don't know exactly what time it is. So check your local listings, set your DVR, all that good stuff. But we'll be back at least for that one. We'll do that one. I think we're going to do probably another one-off show after the draft as well. But like I said, the clearinghouse to find everything I do is on Twitter at MarcasG.
Hell yeah. Hey, Miles, talk to me about what you got coming up here at the network, brother.
Well, that was beautiful. Thank you once again, Marcus, for being on with us and kicking it for a bit. It was a pleasure speaking with you. You can, of course, find me on Twitter at FF_Peacock. I do a lot of my stuff on rumboys.com. You can check out all the graphics, all the articles that the writers put out, myself included, when there's something interesting that I feel like writing about, because I still love to do that occasionally when I have time. But I'm also chopping up videos for everybody else, and you can check out my artwork on Instagram at MuscleUpMiles, and there's underscores in between
the words.
Words, yeah. Sorry, that was horrible ending, but you get it. Dilly, everybody.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Rumboys Robbie. Follow me on Twitter at Rumboys Robbie, at Rumboys spelled with a Z, NET on all other social media. Download the SportsMe app if you guys have not already. Debate your favorite analysts on the SportsMe app. We're really trying to, blow it up and build a really awesome community over there. So check us out, and then also just Google our website, rumboys.com. Protect yourself during the damn pandemic right now. Get yourself a mask. I don't care if they're removing mask mandates. Get yourself a mask on rumboys.com, and rep your favorite podcast whenever you guys are out there. Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Well, first, Marcas, greatly appreciated, brother. Again. Ladies and gentlemen, cheers to me, cheers to you, all the rum boys and girls. What it do, dilly. Holy shit! Play my outro, somebody. Let's go.